Here comes Easter Dinosaur hopping through the forest, wearing his bunny ears like everybody should. Hello all. So in order to celebrate Easter time, which is today, I thought I would make a little bit more visual interest in my apartment and add a couple bunny ears to my various tchotchkes that I have around the house. I got the idea actually last Christmas because I had a mini Santa Claus hat and I put it on a couple of them and I thought, well, that's great. Now everybody can celebrate the holidays. So I decided to make these up. They're really easy, just a little wire, a little felt, and some glue, and a little bit of ribbon to finish them off. And that way, you know, when I come in my house, I can see all the celebration. So I just want to show you how I made them. Let's go. So I made a couple templates out of paper. Just simple paper. I did start by folding them in half because it's a lot easier if these little felt pieces are symmetrical, so that way I don't have to worry about what the right side and the wrong side are. After I figured out what the main ear shape would be, I made a little smaller shape to be the pink side of it. And apart from that, it's just figuring out the wiring armature to make this really cute. So let's start. So I used my little template to make some tracings on felt. It's easier if you line it up around the bottom edge because then you don't have to cut that one. I used an ink pen to trace these out because I tried initially using a pencil, but it just wasn't showing up, so ink seemed to work a lot better. The only caution being that you really have to cut inside the line, otherwise you will see the ink on your white felt. And of course this felt's from Daiso, surprise surprise. I then did the same thing on my pink felt for the inner ear. Of course with the white felt you need 2 pieces per ear, which means for every little mini ear thing you're making you need 4 white pieces, but just 2 pink pieces to be the inner ear. So I did that. So let's see me cutting them out. I'm using my sewing scissors for these, which make a lovely sound. I love those because I want a really sharp edge. Felt can tend to fuzz up and everything, as you've worked with it before, you know. So it was really important that I have a nice clean edge. So I'm using my good sewing scissors. When cutting these, it's not essential that they be perfect because when we glue the 2 sides together, we can go back and trim around them to make sure that it seems very round and nice. Do a little trimming now. It's 1. You'll see that I cut this one a bit unevenly. Like I said, these ears, each ear is made up of 2 parts, one on the front and one on the back. When I glue these together with some tacky glue, which I'll show you in a second, after they're dried I can just finish up the edges. They don't have to be perfect, but this is the work in progress, I guess. Okay. Now we're going to cut out the pink inner ear. I just love this sound. Once again, I'm cutting just inside the ink line so that the ink does not show up on my finished product. If it does, that's okay, because once again, after we glue the 2 pieces together and all, we will trim them down a little bit just to make sure they're perfectly round. Because we're not trimming down the inner ear though, we really have to be careful about this. The bonus is that if we do get a little ink on the, what I would say, the wrong side, because that's the side I've drawn the pattern on, we can always paste it down the right side. See that? No ink. Perfect. Alright. It's a little bit wonky, but it doesn't matter. Nature isn't perfect, and neither should my cutting out be. So now that my ear pieces are cut out, I'm going to work on the wire armature for the ears so that they stick up. So just like my dinosaur, this little gentleman needs some ears as well so he can celebrate the holiday. So I'm going to use him as a base for my wire armature. So I'm using 19 gauge wire for this, which is really actually too thick for this project. I have some 22 gauge somewhere, but I can't find it. Story of my life. But this works okay. This is what I used for the dinosaur's ears, and I think it'll work for this gentleman just fine. Luckily, the ears I made for my Brachiosaurus also will fit this head, so I can use these ears as a template for how I should measure and otherwise adapt the wire. The ears are made by two layers, one which would be the front of this, the headband or whatnot, and then one going back that also includes the ears. So to start off, I will bend this piece. It's a lot easier if you have some needle nose pliers. And you just have to use your fingers and the pliers to help bend everything into shape. Alright, now we're going to form the ears. The wire armature for the ears does not have to be the same size as the actual finished ear. You just want something inside to give it a little more structure. So I've got the basic structure up. As you can see, that's all it needs to be. It doesn't have to be perfect because we're going to finish it off and wrap it up a little bit so that it will look a lot better when finished. So now for a snip. Okay. We're going to twist the first end that we had from when we initially cut the wire together with the other end just to finish it off a little. So once again, this is a bit wonky, but this is just the beginning. Get it together to give this a little more finish and also help us when we're finishing it off with ribbon and felt. I'm going to wrap this in some masking tape. Actually, what I'm going to do is wrap it in some washi tape from Daiso. Honestly, Daiso does not have good washi tape. It's really brittle, it's not good, so this is a good time to use it because it's not going to show, and otherwise it's really not that useful. So we're just going to wrap up the headband area because that's where the uneven little pokey edges are. And also we want to create a better base for the ribbon that we'll wrap around it later to stick to. For me, it's easier if you break off a couple pieces as opposed to using, trying and working with a whole roll. Okay, so here we are. This step does not have to be perfect at all. As you can see, mine isn't. We're just trying to, once again, create a base for the ribbon and hold the little loose pieces together so that it will look a lot better in the finished product. Let's try it out on our model to see if we have the right fit. It helps sometimes to make these curves a lot more exaggerated than they would be, just because then they'll pinch down on the head in question and fit a lot better. Oh yeah, there we go. That's good shape. Good fit. Now it's time for some gluing. I'm using Aleene's Tacky Glue, which you're probably all familiar with. So basically I'm just going to take the bottom piece, place my armature over it, a little bead of glue, da-de-da. Also add some in the middle so it'll hold better. And then putting my top piece on top of that. So once again, when you do this, if it's uneven, as you might be able to see, depending on the lighting, that my edges are uneven, don't worry about it. We're going to trim these down after we get through with the gluing. Now, I will suggest that you overlap the felt onto the headband part, because when you wrap the ribbon around, then it'll make it seem a little more seamless, and you won't necessarily see that this felt is sticking out. My cat just made a boom boom in the toilet. Give me a second. So I'm back, and yes, you heard me correctly. I have trained my cat how to use the toilet. So I've not had to deal with a litter box in about 4 years. It's a godsend. It is like probably the best relationship builder that I've had with my little monkey. I'm sure like a lot of new parents, when you start off, changing the diapers, nice little intimate thing to do with your baby, but eventually you just get tired and you're like, it's time to use the toilet like a fully grown person. So that's what I had to do with my cat. Maybe I'll make a video about it later. Regardless, let's get back to the bunny ears. So now I'm just going to glue the pink inner ear part to the white felt that has hopefully set a little bit. Because this part is so small, you do have to worry about getting glue on your own fingers. But tacky glue will dry clear, so it won't really ruin your project. Let me inspect this one before I glue it on to see if there are any ink spots showing through. I'm not seeing any, so that's good. Okay, so there we go for the ears. I'm going to let these dry for a second and then come back to you. As you can see, depending on the amount of glue you use, it may soak through the felt. Tacky glue is going to once again dry clear, so I'm not really super concerned about that. Although I am seeing a bit of ink right there, so I'm going to trim that off real quick. So the glue on the ears is dry at this point, so we're going to start using our ribbon to wrap up the little headband thing, make it look a little more finished. I'm just going to put a little bit of more tacky glue, which has a funny name at that point. I usually don't use tacky in a good way. I'll fold that over, try and get it as crimped as possible, and then just start wrapping the ribbon around the headband. Once I've gotten it started, I'm going to use, oh no, don't do that. I'm going to use one of these binder clips to hold it down, the end down that is. I work in an office, so these are quite prevalent, or quite abundant. Makes things a lot easier. Going along the line on the last one I made, I haven't really been gluing, but I think it's a good idea just to hold things down a little better. When I get to the ear pieces, I'm going to wrap it once in a sort of triangular fashion. Comme ça. Going to go back a little bit just to hold it down. And that makes for a much better item, I think. So keep wrapping. We're wrapping. Same thing on this ear. I'm going to put a little glue to hold things down. Just a dollop will do you. This doesn't have to be perfect because, once again, this is just household decoration. It adds some whimsy to your home in this holiday season. Why not? Oh, don't get loose. Back up there. Okay. Now finishing this is a little hard because when we began it, we could hide the unfinished edge, but now that we're finishing it, that's going to be exposed. So I try to do something similar to how I started it, just in terms of folding down the raw edge of the ribbon. And once again, I'm going to add a little more tacky glue. This will hold this down. Okay. I'm going to wrap it one more time, just to be sure. Okay. So now that that's good, I'm going to use my other binder clip to hold things down and wait for it to dry. Okay, so I think our glue is for the most part dried out, so I'm going to trim the ribbon. Oh, maybe it wasn't actually dried out, so we might have to put the clamp back on. So at this point the glue has dried. I'm just going to trim up some edges real quickly. Make things a little cuter. There were some loose little threads around the ribbon edge. Let's see those. Trim them. Okay. Well, that's probably not the best. It'll be hidden, so who cares? Let's try it on our little mannequin man for size. Oh yes, this one is a very jaunty bunny. I'm gonna play with the ears a little bit, give him a little more attitude. And there you go. So in addition to my Brachiosaurus, I've got this gentleman. I also have my giraffe right here. If you recognize this animal, it is from Mental Floss. They have a great channel. I'll link to it down below if you're not following it. But I saw this in their background in the little tchotchke wall, which very much inspires me, and so I had to buy him. So yeah, everybody's in the Easter spirit.